Good evening, or good afternoon, should I say, and welcome to this meeting of the Joint Standards Committee. We have some apologies, and I'm just going to ask the clerk to convey those for us, please.
Right, we've had apologies, Chair, from Councillors Galvin and Kilbane. Councillor Pavlovic is subbing for Councillor Kilbane, and also from Parish Councillor Wardby. And it appears that Councillor Dagorn is not here either. I don't know if he's arriving later.
Okay, thank you. We will note those. Thank you very much. Other than what's in your register of interest, does anybody have anything that they feel they need to declare at this stage in terms of declaration of interest? Councillor Fisher.
Sorry. So long as I've been in the meeting, I've forgotten that. I shall declare an interest in item 4 and leave the meeting while that's under discussion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Rawlings.
Chair, slightly off topic, we'll just have confirmation that we are quorate with the number of people who are missing. And Councillor Dagorn not arriving yet.
As the Vice Chair, I commend you on challenging us on that one. I'm pretty sure we are, but
Yeah, the meeting's quorate, Chair.
yes, thank you. I thought.
Thank you, Chair.
But well done. I did do a little juggle around myself before that. Councillor Pavlovic.
Similarly to Councillor Fisher, I have an interest in agenda item 4, and we'll probably, unless that makes us non-quorate, would that make us non-quorate?
No,
We'd still be quorate, yeah. So agenda item 4 then, Chair, I will probably exclude myself.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we move on to item number 2 on the agenda, which is the exclusion of the press and public. And this is to consider exclusion of the press and public from the meeting during consideration of exempt annexes A and B. And agenda item number 11, which is the monitoring officer's report in respect of complaints received. Again, it's pretty standard. Can I just have an indication that you're happy for us to exclude press and public at that point? Yeah, lovely. Thank you. That brings me to the minutes. So we have a number of minutes that needs to be approved. So the first one are the minutes of the Joint Standards Committee held on January the 19th. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Ollie, forgive me, I can't see Mr. Gadd on here. Do I need? Okay, so Mr. Gadd, yep, I can see you. Thank you very much. I forget you're there otherwise, so thank you.
I'm still here, Chair.
Please do join in at a time that you feel is relevant. So back to the minutes of the 19th. Anybody got any comments on those, Councillor Rawlings?
Chair, I was only going to say that as far as I'm concerned, they're a true and accurate account of the meeting that took place. Okay, and everybody seems to be in agreement with that. If that's the case, I'm happy to sign those. I'll sign them probably after the meeting. And then there's the minutes of the subcommittee held on the 21st of minutes of the subcommittee held on the 21st. Councillor Fisher has left the room as he indicated he would do. Again, Chair, I was in attendance at that meeting, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a true and accurate account of the meeting that took place.
Good.
I think that's just you and I.
It was just me there. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So I will sign those off. Item number 5 on the agenda. I have not received any urgent business to discuss. So therefore that's not necessary. Item number 6 on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Item number 6 on the agenda, public participation. There has been no indications that anybody wishes to make any public participations. So that brings us to item number 7, which is the annual report for the municipal year. For those new members, so we have for the last 3 years produced an annual report to council. It's the annual report of this particular committee, which will be presented to council at their, it's not going to be the May meeting, is it? Because that's the annual council. It's July. Will it be July?
It will be the next ordinary
The next
council
ordinary,
meeting.
yeah, the next ordinary council, which is either in June or July. Yeah, so that's so this is the report for that. You'll see I've done a forward there, and then Francis has added a lot of the figures and bits and pieces in there that we need to report. We were asked to have some comparisons, and I think that we can see through the breakdown the diagrams that have been provided to us, just as how that looks. There was just one thing I wanted to change on there. I'm just looking through. So in my forward, I wasn't quite sure if Councillor Kilbane had joined this in this municipal year or the last. It was this municipal year, so I just need to add his name in there somewhere. So if members are happy for me just to do that as part of my forward, that would be really helpful. Any comments or questions, please, on the annual report for 2022-23? Councillor Fisher. Forgive me, Councillor Roy.
Councillor Rowling.
Yes.
I had put my mic on, Chair.
Yes, you had, and I'm so used to saying Councillor Fisher that it just
I
rolled
could
off
make
my
a
tongue.
political comment, but I won't. We're very non.
Councillor Rawlings, then I think Councillor Pavlovic, and Councillor, was your hand up or not? No, that's fine. Councillor Rawlings.
Chair, I just wanted to thank the legal representative for putting together the report, which I think is excellent. I like the way that there are the pie charts. Black and white doesn't work particularly well for it, but nevertheless, the numbers are there as well. And I wanted to bring out and just reference everybody to the fair investigations. There's a case stated there which went to an ombudsman and lists 3 reasons why that case was reversed. And quite often over the year, a number of cases have been dropped by committee on those very reasons, which are obvious to the public at the time. So to see those in the report, I think is very encouraging. Thank you for including that. It's much appreciated.
Good.
Thank you, Chair.
Good. Councillor Pavlovic.
Thank you, Chair. Just on page 16,
Yeah.
civility in public life. There's a reference to the murder of the MP Joe Cox, and I just wonder whether the completeness, there was the murder of the MP Steve Names as well.
Yeah, valid point. No, that's
Stephen Ames.
Stephen Ames.
David Ames, thank you.
David,
Sir
sorry,
David.
David.
Sir David.
Oh, that's even
Yeah.
worse.
You're thinking of Stephen, what's his name, the late, who didn't
It wasn't
succumb,
killed, no,
but he
no,
was attacked, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Sir David Ames. Good. Anybody else?
It's the kind of not better, not worse, the McGonagall kind of thing about just the same. I.e., this is the 22-23 year, but how does it compare previous years? Are we becoming more or less civil? In other words, should it contain any comparators to previous periods?
Yeah.
Because some of your commentary
valid
might
point.
be, I am pleased that we're doing better, or I'm sad that we're not doing as well, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't think you need to change this report, but I think it's
No,
a
it's
conceptual
comparisons.
thing of having comparisons. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is it just the way it normally is?
Is that simple enough? I think a trend rather than kind of numerical comparisons.
Yeah.
So if the trend is,
Are there more complaints? Are there fewer complaints? I'm not saying it's important for this report. I'm just saying conceptually, as you're drafting these things over time, is it worth beginning to build a comparative picture? Because a year as a snapshot isn't as useful as a year compared to the years around it.
Chair, yes, it's a simple, in answer to your question, is it a simple thing to improve a trend? You know, what were the number of complaints last year? It won't be, it would be less simple to provide the type of breakdown that we've done here, but an overall number certainly we can, and which will probably lend itself also to a bit of a graph, so that we build up a pattern
Yeah,
over the
I agree.
years. It will be the beginning of the graph, but we can add to that
Yeah.
graph each year and see the direction of
And
travel.
it's the kind of thing I can imagine the
Yeah.
chair making a commentary on, or, you know,
Yeah.
it's part of his overall view of the year. This year has been better, this year has sadly
Yeah.
not been as good as in previous years.
I mean, this is anecdotal, but from my experience, and I'm quite happy to be proved wrong. To me, I think the number of complaints has been less than we had in the previous municipal year. And Francis is nodding away there. But I think having comparisons, yes, you're right. It gives us an idea of whether, you know, and then over time we'd then be able to build up a picture of if there are any patterns that are occurring at certain times, other times where they're more prolific or they're not, and then looking at those times and see if there's any kind of trigger point within them. Councillor Pavlovic.
Don't know if it's worth referencing, but we have had the LGA in to do a review of culture within the authority, practices within the authority, and there's no reference to any of that. And I just think it looks like a bit of an odd omission, given that they have reported back to A&G in particular, but also to council.
Chair, yes, that was on my list of things to include, and because it had been to A&G, I didn't, but if it seems to members like an omission, then I will
I
certainly
just
add it
think,
back in.
given the relevance of this committee, it just seemed a bit of a glaring gap, particularly when you're referring to the LGA model code of conduct and all the rest of it. You know, they were called in, they have done a review, they have reported back on it.
I mean, it's alluded to, not very strongly in my introduction,
Yes.
and it's also kind of alluded to in the code of conduct training as well, about the training that was delivered, and didn't specifically mention the LGA, but I'm happy for it to do so if we can insert that somewhere in there.
Would members like to give an indication of the overall tenor of that comment? What should that be? That review has been done and action is being taken. That review has been done and there is positives. That review has been done and there are negatives to work on. What's the?
I mean, my personal view is you don't need to go over the top on it. They were called in as a consequence of, if you like, the PIR, and they made recommendations, and those recommendations have been accepted by full council. Something along those lines.
I suppose, but thank you, Captain. My only slight hesitation is that type of comment is more relevant for A&G. Does it have the same resonance for this committee? I'm not sure it does, but I'm happy for members to comment accordingly. I think reference to the LGA, I think we can put it in there. It's been referenced in this civility and public life section. We've kind of referenced the consequences of their involvement in terms of member training and development, and also the new model code of conduct that I mentioned in the introduction.
Can I suggest then, Chair, that the wording of that be agreed by yourself and the legal officer and maybe the vice chair of the committee, and whatever you feel is appropriate, then I'm sure that will be fine.
Thank you. I think a reference is probably right. The wording of that reference, I think we can easily kind of thrash that out. Any other members got any comment about that? Yeah, you beat me to it, Ollie. I was just about to go to Mr. Gadd.
Yeah, good afternoon. Could I please make two comments on this item? The first one refers to pages 13 and 14. just to reinforce what's already been said about the black and white printing, completely understand why we're black and white printing. But if it were possible to place the names against percentages, that would make it much easier reading for people. And the second comment, if I may, is on page 16 concerning civility in public life. And I wonder whether or not we need to include the rules of conduct on social media, which has been a recurring theme, has it not, for the last 12 months? Thank you.
Just expand on what you mean by the rules of social media conduct, because my understanding was that
when we're talking about civility, when we talk about civility in public life, Chair, we talk a lot about respect for one another, which is great, but I haven't seen any specific mention of behavior online forums, and what counts as bad behavior and what doesn't, what's disrespectful online and what isn't. I think that clarification would be really helpful. Okay, so again, just to kind of bring you and Joe up to speed. So the old model code of conduct was not stringent enough to differentiate between an individual's conduct online or offline. We took advice and we put a model code of conduct together, which had been the framework of which had been provided by the LGA, and in that it was very clear that the conduct of an individual who identifies himself as a parish councillor or a City of York councillor, if they identify themselves on a social media platform, then they potentially could be reported for a breach of the code of conduct. However, if they do not identify that, then it is very difficult for a complaint to be made about that. So I think in terms of individual training for new members, whether they be ward councillors or parish councillors, I think there can be, in that training, there can be a piece around what is expected for social media behaviour. I think we can't bring that into our remit unless an individual specifically declares on their social media platform, and their comments that then caused the complaint are made on their declared social media platform. I think it would be difficult under the new code of conduct for us to take that any further. That's my interpretation. I'm more than happy for members to comment on that. Or Francis.
Apologies, Chair, I had understood Mr. Gadd's comment to be in part about the rules of engagement from citizens, and that is part of the civility in public life messaging. And I wondered whether what Mr. Gadd was saying was whether he was suggesting an expansion of that section to specifically highlight things like rules of engagement and suggestions that the LGA make to members about how they might protect themselves from abuse and intimidation, including online. So that those resources are there, they are part of the pledge, but I may have misunderstood the comments. I don't know whether it was rules of engagement from, you know, how should members behave or how should people behave towards members, but there's a possible expansion to the section on civility in public life is very easy for me to do.
Mr. Gadd, your comment, you either I've got it wrong or the head of legal's got it wrong. Or we both got it wrong.
I believe that Francis expressed it far more eloquently than I could.
Brilliantly. Okay. So the piece is more to do with how people should deal with us.
So the solution then is to add a little bit to that civility on public life section.
Okay. Yeah. Got there in the end. Is that okay with you, Mr. Gadd?
Absolutely perfect, Chair. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Gallagher? I'm aware that you're remote and sometimes it's easy to miss you.
I'm here, I'm observing, I'm very happy, Chair, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Fisher. No, sorry, I thought you had your hand up there. Any other comments on the report? Councillor Rawlings.
If the others have finished, Chair, it was only to suggest that we formally agree that those amendments can be done by legal and the chair, maybe with my oversight as well. And we can then complete the report without having to bring it back to another meeting.
Members happy with that? You happy with that, Mr. Gadd?
Absolutely, yes.
Brilliant. Good. Okay. Thank you very much for that, members. I think we've given that a good. And again, my personal thanks to Frances for all the hard work that she's put into doing that, and also the fact that she is with us at every meeting and keeps us on the straight and narrow. So that's good. Item number 8 is the review of work, and we're going to do this in two. Oh no, forgive me. So the review of work is page 19. I'm jumping ahead of myself there. In terms of kind of the forward work plan, I think it would be difficult for us as a committee that will be reconstituted come the 7th of June to put anything on the work plan other than what's already on there, which are the statutory standard items of the monitoring report in respect of complaints received. Does anybody have any comment? Councillor Fisher, then Councillor Rawlings.
Chair, bearing in mind that we have a reasonable amount of experience of dealing with complaints on this committee, the possibility is that at least 3 of us here might not be here after the election. I think the one thing that's concerned me is I think we need a review of the process for handling complaints procedures. I think far too many complaints are going through to assessment and wasting officer time and member time when they are never ever conceivably going to be a breach of the code of conduct, but they have to go to that assessment panel because the person is either a chair or a vice chair or one of the other groups that is specified. I think we need to remove that because I think we need to look at whether we need to remove that, because I think it's wasting far too much time on complaints that are essentially spurious, but they have to go to the assessment committee because of the person the complaint is against.
Yeah.
And I think we need to streamline that because I'm quite sure that our independent persons and our monitoring officer can make a decision about whether a complaint is actually falls within the remit without it going any further.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Lee, do you want to?
I was just going to make a comment. I can see what Councillor Fisher is saying, and I don't disagree with him. But if you were cautious about making a change, one possible change you could make is it would have the independent person and the legal advisor would have to be absolutely sure that wasn't the case. So they would tend to refer, but they wouldn't have to refer. You'd move it from an absolute requirement to, in clear cases, there would be no need to refer, but you would still leave it that if there was any marginal suggestion, because of the nature of things, you would refer.
Completely happy with that. It's just to make sure that you and the monitoring officer have the discretion to remove and stop wasting time and money, because officer time is money.
No, I get that, and I'm going to answer you both in a moment, but I'm just going to ask Councillor Rawlings because you want to come, then I'll come back with a comment so far to the 2 of you, possibly to the 3rd.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it appears to me that we may not be the same group that is here at the next meeting, but there are things that we've worked on and concerns that we've got, which we can use the work plan to direct a future committee to. And I think that's what Councillor Fisher was really after. So the insistence, well, the view on my view would be that the review of the standard policies and procedures, which was down for today, is actually officially rolled over to the next meeting.
Correct.
And that rolls in those concerns that have already been expressed. And the other one, which again, we wouldn't normally pressurize a new committee to look at things, but we're losing a lot of experience. We've spent an awful lot of time on training. And it's my view that we should be getting more feedback on training, how many people are doing what training courses, and how much buy-in there is to the training that's available. So the rolling over of the update on member training programme, I think is quite critical. And if I was a member of the committee at that time, I'd be wanting to see of the induction after the election, how many councillors had actually taken part in in that induction, so that we can start to see a picture of the level of commitment after we've done substantial work in that area. So what I'm suggesting, if I wrap that together, is that normally we wouldn't propose things for the work plan for a new committee, but on this occasion, those two items, the update on member training with more detail and the standard policies and procedures should indeed be put in for the 7th of June meeting.
Okay, so I will answer all three of you in a moment because I have an answer to all of you. Councillor Fisher.
If I can just change my hat from standards to audit and governance. Audit and governance were very clear that we felt that all member training should be recorded online so that the public have a right to see which councillors are undertaking training, and it should be transparent, and I totally and completely support that.
Good. Before I give my answers, because I have an answer to all of those. Any of the other members want to comment on the work plan? Councillor Chambers.
Yeah.
I share Councillor Fisher's concern because we don't want to be reinventing the wheel every time that we get new people on and new ideas and new ways of doing business. That should be fairly well fixed. So it's not immutable because nothing is ever mutable in life. However, as I was saying, there is, a reasonable amount of experience around this table, and it would be a shame if we would then be seen to be changing that and slightly moving backwards because we inducted a lot of new people with new ideas. So the more that we could actually agree with today and say, yes, this is the way that we would think we should be doing business in the future, I think the better.
Good. Okay. Councillor Pavlovic.
Certainly got no problem with that. The only thing I would say is I don't think the training will have completed by 7th of June. So I wonder if it's worth moving that to the 21st of September meeting when it should have finished.
Mr. Gadd, do you want to comment on the work plan?
Just one comment, if I may, Chair. And please forgive me if this is not the right forum, but when we're talking about member training, I wonder whether this committee isn't the best committee to comment and influence the future conduct of induction training. And I wonder how long ago that was reviewed and how it might be developed in future going forward from June, say.
Okay, thank you very much. So, gentlemen, I've listened to all your comments, and in terms of full disclosure, so I have been having conversations with the monitoring officer since his appointment, and a lot of the conversations have been around the procedures and how we look at the procedures. His concern was very similar to yours, Councillor Fisher, in terms of the fact that we've made it so rigid that actually. So what we've done, and again, I've had the benefit of being on this committee for the full 4 years. And I can remember as a new committee member coming in 4 years ago, and we virtually kind of rewrote everything. We wanted everything out. We wanted the full reports so we could look back. Because what you have to bear in mind is that for us that are current members of the committee, we look at the papers that we've got, and most of us have been around when historic complaints have come and been sorted and have gone, but new members of the committee weren't. So 4 years ago, this committee becomes reconstituted in the new administration, and they want everything. And then it evolved over that 4 years to the point that we've got it now, where we don't have everything because we don't really need a big list of. So what we did in that 4 years is we looked at the code of conduct and the procedures and the policies that underwrite it. That's a big piece of work that we've done as a committee, and that has now all been done and has been rewritten, has been adopted by full council, and so we work to those particular policies and procedures. However, part of the review of the committee like this is how efficient those policies and procedures are. And sometimes we can have a bit of a scattergun approach, which actually we do need to be a little bit more targeted. And the monitoring officer's opinion, as is my opinion, as is Councillor Fisher's opinion, Mr. Chambers' opinion, that actually we need to just look at how that is changed. I guess the reason that we haven't proposed doing it before now is for that very reason that I said to you, that a new committee will be reconstituted. We may all be on it. There may only be 4 people around this table that are on it. Who knows? But what I'm trying to say is that what I didn't want to do was to have a fait accompli for a new committee being reconstituted, who then go back and do exactly the same that we did 4 years ago, and then want to kind of reinvent the wheel. So my suggestion would have been the same as Councillor Williams. I thank you, Councillor Williams, for suggesting it. I think the review of the standards, policies and procedures is vitally important, and that should go onto the agenda for the next meeting, for the 7th of June meeting. Similarly with training, member training, so to come back to Mr. Gadd's comment. So in terms of member training, it was agreed that both the Joint Standards Committee and the Audit and Governance Committee would work together collaboratively just to look at the whole member training, and we have certainly one former chair of the Audit and Governance around the table, and the vice chair of the Audit and Governance around the table, and it's been really, really helpful to have their input into this committee over the last few years. So we have worked really closely with Audit and Governance. I think that this still remains the right committee, just to ensure that that training is being done, and how that's reported, then that's another piece of work for ourselves and possibly A&G. Again, I come back to Councillor Pavlovic's point. I think you're quite right. I think we will know on the 7th of June what the makeup of both the City of York Council and also those contested parish councils, because there are parish councils elections coming up in 2 weeks as well. We will know the outcome of those. We will hopefully have had conversations with group leaders and individuals. So whilst we may not be able to have a thorough list of completed training, I think we will be in a position on the 7th of June to review where we are with the training in terms of what's going to be provided. And then I think if we have that also on the 21st, then the training should be completed. So my suggestion, and thank you gentlemen very much for your input, my suggestion is that we put the review of standards and procedures into the 7th of June meeting, and that the member training updates go into both the 7th of June meeting and the 21st of September meeting as simple agenda items. And the reality is that the 4 of you will be in this meeting anyway to look at that.
Please, can you make the reporting on member training exception reporting, not a big lump of stuff about these members have completed all these things. The only thing that's relevant are these members have not completed these things. So if you report the exceptions, it'll become a much more focused and a smaller report, and it'll get even smaller the second time you see it.
Okay, yeah, very valid point. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Councillor Fisher.
Training, I believe, is to be done in person, but there will be options for online training as well. And therefore, there is no excuse for any member not, if they can't attend this in-person session, to do the online training at home. So every member should be able to do everything. So there's no excuse for saying, I was aware that day I couldn't do it.
Okay. Thank you. And one thing that I can say, having had a slight kind of sight of it, the new member, or the member, should I say, not just new member, the member induction programme post the 4th of May is far more robust than it has been, certainly in the time that I've been around. I've had sight of what, even the hardware we're going to be getting. You won't have your own, your own computer, and so it's a really robust member induction program that will give you access to all the training that's available, and an area where you can record that training and register that that training's been done. So I think in order to find the information that you're looking for, Mr. Lee, and then to have it as those that haven't, and we'll be as percentages. I get your point. We don't want a big long list, and I think if it can be as concise but as accurate as possible, that's the bit for me. Councillor Pavlovic.
Yeah, probably too specific for this committee at this stage. But can I just make one request that planning training is made mandatory for all members?
I think that already is.
It's not. It's
not?
No, it's just for committee members.
Right, let's believe that.
It's available for all,
Right.
but mandatory for committee members, and I think it should be mandatory because it's an issue that comes up for every single councillor.
Yeah, I
And
absolutely agree.
If people are giving the wrong advice, or not saying actually that's not a planning matter, they're doing a disservice. So I think the more training that members have on something that is quasi-judicial, the better.
Yeah, good, but great point. Thank you. I absolutely agree with that. Anything else on the work plan? Mr. Gadd, anything from you there, sir? I know you.
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, lovely. Good. Thank you for that, members. I think we've exhausted that. So we now come to item number 9 on the agenda, and we're going to do this in 2 parts. So there is a redacted list that we can discuss in public, but with no names, please. And then we will exclude press and public, and then we look at the unredacted list. So does anybody have any questions on item number 9 on the redacted list of complaints? Anybody got any questions about this particular section? I don't see any hands. Mr. Gadd, any questions on the public document?
The only point I might make, Chair, if I may, is that when, for example, a case is closed, be that because the complaint has been withdrawn or its history, I wonder whether that could either be removed from the annex or shaded a different colour, just to focus our attention.
Yeah, just to say it's perfectly possible to colour code the open, closed, recently closed, sorry, so that it's, absolutely clear.
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously it will come out in a kind of grayscale, but at least it differentiates it. Councillor Rawlings.
Thank you, Chair. The only comment I would make is that there seemed to be a change in trend. There's an awful lot of comments here or complaints here which are parish, City of York parish, etc., which isn't in line with the kind of numerical data which you've took in the annual report. So basically what I'm saying is it emphasises the need to build a historical record when trends change.
Yeah.
There's only actually one on this report, which is a complaint by a resident, whereas the mix and the percentage mix within the annual report was substantially different to that.
Anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you. So we are now going to go into the private list of complaints, and at this point I'm going to ask our technical staff if they will please close the meeting. We will not be coming back into public session at the end of this particularly part of the agenda. The meeting will close. So thank you for those of you that have been watching either live or on catch up, and we will now go into